Well, kind of the day in the life with Mark is pretty crazy right now because I've got too many irons in the fire.
Well, welcome to another episode of Coffee with John. Today, it's my pleasure to have with me Mr. Mark West. Mark, how are you doing this? Well, it is this morning, but how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm really doing great. It's a gorgeous day here in Tennessee. It's cooled off big time.
You know,
so it's nice to walk out and it's chilly.
I traced my roots to Tennessee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a man that was born on a mountaintop in Tennessee, killed him a bear when he was only 3, Davy Crockett. And so I'm a direct descendant of Davy Crockett. So I love talking to my family, my Tennessee volunteer families.
Well, it's kind of ironic that I trace my roots to Texas because my father is a Texan. He's born in Houston, or as he would say, Houston.
Yes.
And he has a lot of family still out there, so we enjoy catching up with them.
Yeah. Well, you have a very great and interesting life story. You have, you're one of those people that put a business plan together on a napkin and then executed on it and did very well in the business. And you've got this great kind of corporate business background. You are a race car driver. You're very involved in your local community and in politics, and it just seems like you have like a million irons in the fire. And as we were talking a little bit, you were sharing that maybe that's not quite such a good thing to do.
Yeah, one of the things I think that overachievers, and I use that not because I'm patting myself on the back, but I mean, there's a lot of overachievers in America. Our culture tends to promote that. And so when you're an overachiever, you have this idea that I can do it all, so something comes to you or something looks good and you think it fits into your skill set. You say, yeah, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And that's been a problem in my life, probably all of my adult life, honestly. Yeah. But we did build a business and sell it, all of a sudden, options became even more available. And right. So options create a bigger issue with really defining what is essential in your life.
Yeah. I talk to people when I do coaching and stuff. I use strength finders a lot. And, one of the things that I work with people is I say, it's not that you have strengths and weaknesses, is you have strengths and there's things that you don't have, and you actually need other people to do those things. And I think you're right. There's a lot of us that just, especially if you're, kind of A-type personality or whatever, it's just go, and I'll get it done. But how have you gone through the process of peeling back and what does that look like to you? Because I mean, you really are, you've got a coaching business. Aren't you guys opening up an event center, a new retreat center?
Yeah, we actually are. It's called the Liberty Ridge Ranch, and we bought a 55-acre farm last year, my wife and I, and it's just about 20 minutes from our current home. But we have spent a ton of time and effort and money renovating the whole place, and so that's another business venture certainly that we are involved in, focused on helping the business community and young couples as well.
Yeah. So tell us what you're doing. You just read Essentialism, which I know I heard. Who's the author of the book?
Greg McKeown.
So I heard him on Michael Hyatt's podcast about a month ago. I haven't read the book yet, but tell us a little bit about Essentialism and how you're applying it.
Well, you asked, how have I dealt with all this? And honestly, it's been an ebb and flow issue throughout my entire life. I start to realize, or my wife helps me start to realize, Lori, that, maybe there are too many irons in the fire. Maybe I do need to say no to this one or that one. So, it's been an issue that I've known and I've dealt with, but in my own way. But reading the book these last few weeks really pointed out it brought some clarity to this issue and really gave me some specific practical ideas and solutions to this. And the bottom line is, the idea is, of course, we fill up our plate with all these good things. We've heard the phrase, the good is the enemy of the best. That's a simple little slogan or phrase, but it really is true. So we get all these good things going, and we have to start realizing that when you spread yourself so thin, you really are not going to achieve your best results with all those good things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you peel back some of those good things and focus on the best things, you become an essentialist,
Yeah.
and you become better in what you're actually doing. So it's a daily issue. It's not something you do once and for all. It's a daily issue of recommitting to that focus.
Yeah. I wonder if, part of the thing, I'm certainly, I've got a very strong Christian faith. And, when you have this faith, man, God can do everything. And sometimes we think, well, if God can do everything, I can do everything too. And, that sort of clouds our mind. We start to think, well, we are like God, we are not God. And,
Yeah.
and so I think that kind of floods into us because we, you know, like you said, there's so many good things that can be done, but there really is the more that I study, the more that I realize there really is, sort of one thing that you're supposed to do. I think that we have different seasons. We go through different seasons as we find that one thing. But I think that's something that does kind of cloud our perspective is, we want to do this great thing or we have a skill set or, God can do everything, God can minister to all people. So we need to minister to all people. And while there's an element of truth to that, I think that there's also a need of humility to say, no, what's that one thing? What's that one thing that God uniquely designed and developed you to do? And, through that process, I love Proverbs 25:2. It's the glory of God to conceal a matter, the glory of kings to find it out. And I think that that's the process as we grow and experience and go through life. We're sort of like seeking those. I explain it to my kids, those Easter eggs that he's hidden in the backyard of our life. He's put those Easter eggs for us to go find. And we need to focus on finding that one, golden egg that he has for us.
Yeah, as you're talking, several thoughts came to mind. Of course, there's a scripture, Philippians 4:13, that says, "I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me." And of course, that's been a verse that's been a part of my life since I was a teenager. But we can sometimes misquote that particular verse and think we can do all things. And of course, that's not what it's communicating.
Right.
Another interesting.
It says we can do all things, not that we should do all things.
There you go. Another interesting part of my background or life, I grew up on the mission field and spent 12 years in the country of Spain from the ages of 3 to 15. And one of the things my mom always repeated to me and my brothers and sister was keep doing things. It was just this funny little motto that we had in our family, keep doing things. She was lady that created lists. She still does to this day at 80 years of age. And she's got all these checklists that you got to do. And I think there was a subliminal message there that I took with me into my adult life. And I have to stay busy. I got to keep doing things, and that is a good thing from one perspective, but it can be really a curse if you let it take control of your life, that there's always something you've got to be doing, and there's never downtime, or you don't really take time to consider what are those things you should be doing.
Yeah. I had I call it the privilege. I didn't really plan for it. But when I was handed my pink slip from Dell, it ended up, it was a reasonable severance package, and it gave me an opportunity, so I was 40 something years old. And for a year, I was able to just take that sabbatical and spend time with my wife and kids. And we went to Michigan, 2 or 3 times where her family is. If we'd actually take that sabbatical year of rest, I think that we would probably be healthier. And I think we'd probably be more effective if we'd actually, do those things that he's told us to do.
Absolutely. And, my business background was such that it was at such a harried pace and very frantic, really, quite honestly, because we were building a business, my business partner and I, over the course of 10 plus years or so. And I mean, there was never a moment that we were just not consumed with that business. It was a high growth business, and we were in 6 states, up to 25 locations at one point.
Wow.
And it just took us tremendous amount of time and energy and resources to build. But it was funny that, and we, at the height, we had about 1,500 employees in all of our companies. But the day after we sold our business, the final sale,
Right.
it was funny because we went from this pace that was so frenetic to the next day, there was like nothing.
Right.
You know?
What do I do?
Exactly. And of course, we did keep one employee, a gal that kind of helped us wrap everything up over the next year, close things out and so forth. But still, it was such a dramatic, it's like, wow, exactly. What do I do now?
Yeah.
And I'm 46 at that time. So I'm thinking, well, what do I do? You don't retire.
No.
And yet
you got at least 40 years left in. You're barely at the halfway mark, maybe.
Exactly. And yet you don't retire. You could retire. You could do nothing again, but that's not me.
Oh, we could have a whole nother podcast on people who disengage from the race. Maybe they have the financial capability, or they just have a lifestyle that doesn't require the finances. And I remember talking to a guy, and that was really the whole subject. As I told him, I said, what if it's not about you? What if it's about the other people that you can serve, that you can help, that you can minister to?
Yeah.
And he just disengaged. He just didn't need to, and it drove me crazy. But anyway, that's a topic for another podcast.
Yeah. Well, of course, over the next year or so, I began to pursue things that really were a passion in my life, even before I sold the business, but I didn't have the time to do it. Obviously, something that we started out talking a little bit about was the political side, and I've had a passion for politics, so that was something I began to pursue. I have a passion for missions because I grew up on the mission field. So even though I had been involved in missions financially, I began to get involved with my time as well and travel to different places and so forth. So you have this time, you want to put it to good use. And so little by little, you start filling it up and you start seeing all these things you could start doing. They're all going in different directions.
Yeah.
But they're all things that are a big part of who you are over time and things you enjoy doing. So it's very easy then to start filling that plate up that immediately got cleared. I mean, it's funny. In one moment, the plate is cleared, figuratively speaking. Obviously, you still have family and kids and so forth. But over the next year or two, you start piling it back on with other good duties, good tasks, good projects. But failing to really differentiate between what's good and what's the best.
So now you're back to, you've got a full plate of things. So what are some principles that you are, you're in this process,
right,
of defining the good from the best? What are some principles that you're using as you're going through and you're identifying, and how are you kind of taking those things off of your plate and finding the right people to hand them off to or whatever? And I know you're in the sauce of this. So give us a little bit of sense, because I think that's what causes us is there's a pain to it. I mean, there's actual work involved to taking stuff off your plate, because you don't want to just drop it. You don't want to be done with it. So as someone that's kind of feeling the pain of going through it, tell us a little bit about how you're dealing with it and how you're identifying what's on and what's off.
That's a really good point. Is the phrase you said, feeling the pain. And there is pain to filling up a plate, and so there also is pain to clearing that plate somewhat. And so one of the things that the book Essentialism talks about, and it's a really interesting principle, and that is to pause when a new opportunity presents itself. My tendency, and perhaps an overachiever's tendency, to say, sure, let's go for it.
Right.
Let's do it. But if you simply take a pause, don't say yes, don't say no, just pause.
Yeah.
In that moment of pausing, you're beginning to, you're starting a new habit, really,
Yeah.
of saying, okay, let me think through this.
Yeah.
And there's some techniques you can use in the moment, so to speak. If you're on the phone and someone asks you to do something, say, let me get back to you. That's a pause.
Right.
But when you're by yourself and a new opportunity presents itself, pause.
Okay.
And so that's one technique. Of course, another technique is to start using that 2-letter word, no.
Oh, that's a horrible word.
Yeah, yeah. And people look at that as saying, well, that's a negative concept. But a no actually can be a very, very positive and freeing concept, because you can either say yes and be stuck with something you really wish you'd said no for days or weeks or years to come, or you can say no and be freed of that feeling you're going to have for years from now. And I'll give you one example. I was recently asked to join a group, a subgroup of a larger group. And this subgroup was, half a dozen folks who were achievers,
Okay.
and just going to meet once a week virtually, and hold each other accountable and this, that, and the other. Well, in the past, I would have said, sure, this is a great opportunity. Hang out with some other overachievers.
Hang out with some great people, have a good time. It's going to be wonderful.
And I really, and I got email from all the group, and they were all encouraging me and saying what it was doing for them. And my tendency was, yes, let's do this. But I applied this principle of pause, and I actually applied it over the course of a week.
Wow.
With some interaction. And I really struggle with what is really such a simple decision, but I really struggle with it. You're talking 30 minutes a week that I was going to commit to.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I finally wrote an email back to the group, said, this is a great opportunity. I really appreciate it. It could be beneficial to me, but at this point in time in my life, I have to say, no, it just doesn't work.
Wow.
And the minute I hit send, but this is really weird, and I've told this to several other people, I felt this sense of freeing emotion, almost like a burden rolled off my back when I hit send. I mean, I can't describe it to you, but I was sitting on my couch with my laptop, hit send, and wow, I felt great. And I know if I had said yes, there would have been no sense of that. In fact, there would have been a sense of, what have I just done?
Yeah.
I just
committed
30 minutes. Yeah.
Wow. I think that is a great principle, to have that pause and because I know I have that tendency to just, go. And, I think both of us study the DISC personality profile. And one of the indicators is your speed to make decisions. And I am definitely a, ready, fire, aim kind of guy. And, there's parts of my life where that's worked to a benefit. And there's a few areas of my life where I've had to have my wife, who is much more of a ready, aim.
Yeah.
Aim.
Right.
So we work well to balance each other out. But I think that's some great principles. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for talking about essentialism, about